Dragon, SpaceX. Successful leak checks. Dragon has initiated cabin venting. Venting complete. Stand by for GNC config and hatch open. Dragon, SpaceX. SpaceX is go for EVA operations.
Away from its 15th launch. But before we get to that point, we're coming up on the start of the so-called big vent here as they thermally condition the feed lines ahead of second stage liquid oxygen loading. And there you see the big vent kicking off right on track. This venting set to last until about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds. We're currently T-minus 16 minutes and counting. At this point, SpaceX is beginning to load the Falcon 9's second stage with liquid oxygen.
As we are getting ready to see this rocket ascend to the skies above Florida's Space Coast, let's go ahead and talk about where it's going to be flying. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we?
This mission, Starlink 8-11, heading up to the 8th shell of the SpaceX Starlink mega constellation.
Means that when it lifts off from this pad, Space Launch Complex 40 or Slick 40, here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, it's going to be flying in a northeasterly trajectory, so heading up along the east coast of the United States. Pretty bright at this time of day, so the likelihood that a lot of folks outside of Central Florida may be able to see this is probably pretty slim, but keep your eyes skyward and maybe you'll get lucky as it climbs uphill. Following stage separation, the first stage booster B-1077 is going to be landing on the SpaceX drone ship. Just read the instructions. Hoping to make its 15th landing after its 15th launch today. Of course, the other SpaceX drone ship on the East Coast, shortfall of Gravitas, still in Port Canaveral after it got an unfortunately hard landing with the SpaceX booster B-1062 ending its 23 mission record-breaking run. So unclear exactly when shortfall of Gravitas will next be available to head back out to sea to support future Falcon missions. But for now, just read the instructions. We'll take the charge here. This is set to be the the 91st booster landing on this particular drone ship if successful today. SpaceX also looking to recover the payload fairings from this mission as it saves about $6 million per recovery effort. Those fairings splash down under the support of parachutes.
And the recovery vessel Bob is out there in the Atlantic as well, getting ready to scoop those up and bring them back into port. This recovery vessel Bob and the other main one, Doug, named after former NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, the duo who flew aboard the Demo 2 mission for SpaceX, beginning its crewed flights of the Dragon spacecraft back in May of 2020. This is what it looks like as the fairing halves are brought back on board one of those recovery vessels. Currently T-minus 12 minutes, 3 seconds, and counting. Want to thank channel member Grandpa Jim Pondu for being a channel member for 2 months.
Really appreciate that, Grandpa Jim. It says, go SpaceX. It's always wonderful to see some of those super long month milestones, but also really great to see folks that are marking their 1 or 2 or 3 month as well. Channel membership powers what we do here at Spaceflight now, so it's very heartwarming to see those who continue on with channel membership and continue to get value out of what we do here on the channel and on our website as well. I should mention spaceflightnav.com. Be sure to keep that bookmarked and check in periodically on the launch schedule. We keep that as up to date as possible. let you know when future launches are coming your way, and of course, if there are landings in the process as well. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, SpaceX is looking to launch its 85th Falcon 9 rocket with this Starlink 8-11 mission today. Let's go ahead and talk about the workhorse vehicle, which stands at 70 meters or 229 feet tall. It has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Majority of that is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage, bottom two-thirds of the rocket. As we mentioned, this particular booster, B-1077, has made 14 flights before, looking for number 15 in about 10 minutes. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin 1T engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs, which will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship, Shortfall of Gravitas. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core that's surrounded by carbon fiber. And the image you see there on the right-hand side of your screen are the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere tail first like a big old dart towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the Falcon 9's second stage. At first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches. 4 pneumatic pushers ensure clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the interstage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. During its ignition, the Falcon 9's upper stage burned about 220,500 pounds thrust. It'll be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 21 Starlink satellites into their
Here for liftoff does remain green, meaning that weather is not an impediment to launch. However, as SpaceX noted in its post a little while ago, around the start of fueling, they are keeping an eye on the recovery area weather. We're now T minus 4 minutes, 19 seconds and counting. At this point, the
strong back retract sequence is getting underway. That process involving
opening up the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings and then the transporter erector. The strong back reclining about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket.
Just want to make a note for the record as we're continuing our countdown now, less than 3.5 minutes, that SpaceX themselves have not started their own launch broadcast providing pad views and mission audio, which is considerably later than their normal start time of about 5 minutes prior to liftoff.
Not to say that we should necessarily read any more into that than what it is, but just to note that normally they would be providing video and pad audio at this point. So far that has not begun. Their
broadcasts are set to start at 12:02 p.m. Eastern. There's been no statement from SpaceX as to the status of the mission since they made a note that the start of fueling was getting underway. If in fact they are still on track to launch this Falcon 9 in about 2 minutes, they're approaching the point of liquid oxygen load wrapping up on the second stage. Mission is aborted.
I do have word from the Brevard County Emergency Operations Center that they have deactivated their launch operations support team
following the scrub of today's mission. Well, we're still awaiting official word from SpaceX on the reason for the scrub and the final minutes of the count. Based off of their previous statement, we can infer that potentially the recovery weather had something to do with it. But again, we'll wait for official confirmation from SpaceX. Once again, if you're just joining us, SpaceX has officially scrubbed the launch attempt of the Starlink 8-11 mission. That's due to, we believe, as they suggested in an earlier post on X, recovery weather. So SpaceX will pivot to their 24-hour backup opportunity. Weather proving tricky for SpaceX on a couple of fronts, obviously. Still keeping the Polaris Dawn mission on the pad, that due as well to recovery weather 5 days after that mission launches, whenever it's able to launch.
Weather also now putting the brakes on this Starlink
8-11 mission. Not halting everything happening here on the Space Coast, though. Want to take a look over at our friend Chuck and Jen Briggs' camera view here. Taking a live look right now
out at Launch Complex 36 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And you're looking right now at the second stage
of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket. Come back to that in just a second, but we do have now official word from SpaceX confirming that, and I quote, due to unfavorable booster recovery weather conditions in the Atlantic, the team is resetting Falcon 9's launch of Starlink for tomorrow, September 5th. So again, SpaceX now confirming that the 24-hour opportunity for this Starlink mission is what they are proceeding with. That window opens up tomorrow morning at 8:35 a.m. Eastern, 12:35 UTC. Our live coverage on this second bite at the apple for this mission will begin an hour before liftoff. Coming back here to Blue Origin in its second stage, they can see here on the big box.
Blue Origin notes that it's going to be doing a hot fire test of the two BE-3U engines on the second stage. Yesterday it noted that the hot fire test was coming up, quote, in a few days. So look for activity to continue ramping up here at the pad as Blue Origin is looking to prepare its rocket for its inaugural launch this year. It's a big year for debut rockets, as of course we saw the first launch of United Launch Alliance's Vulcan rocket back in January. Now Blue Origin getting ready to
lift off its New Glenn rocket for the very first time, hopefully in October.